So the Children's Society is a national charity that's been supporting young people through their most serious life challenges for 140 years. Our vision is a society built for all children, one where every child feels hopeful, happy, and excited about the future. And our work spans 4 connected areas, including direct practice. So this is like frontline services supporting young people through issues like mental health, exploitation, and poverty. Research, which gives us the evidence base to understand what young people are facing. Campaigning, using this evidence to push for systematic change at the national level. And fundraising and engagement, engaging people to support the Children's Society through time, money, and voice. And our engaging networks, forms, and broadcasts span and support all these areas. So I'm going to hand over to Matt.
Thank you, Callum. Oh yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Matt Summers Sparks. I'm a senior developer at the Children's Society. It's very nice to be here today. So I work mostly on the technical side of things. I'm going to do my best though to keep it away from that little sort of realm. And I just wanted to share some of the challenges and I guess obstacles, maybe challenges and obstacles are the same thing, when we were designing our marketing tools email templates. So what I'll show you initially, these are our designs that our design team made for us, and I think they're very nice. They're very much on brand as well. I mean, what you'll see with these is there's a lot of fields that can be sort of broken up, and there are a lot of sort of visual flourishes as well. I hope this comes through, but there's sort of a paint effect on some of the blocks, and sort of a 50-50 or a side-by-side layout for some of the blocks as well. So I think they're great designs. They're very nice. We wound up with something very different from this. But I would just say before we go on, as someone who is a web developer, a web user, these don't seem by default all that unreasonable to me. You know, it's in most ways it's images. I mean, you break it all down, it's images, it's HTML, it's a bit of CSS to style it, but it's nothing radically different. You know, there's not things sliding in, disappearing. It's in most ways static. So it's not, to me, coming from a web background, not unreasonable. And so what our initial goal with these was to take those designs, make them into little blocks that we could use across all of our templates. And Marketing Tools is very good at that. So it's got a block library, as you may well be familiar with. And you can take those blocks and you can use them on multiple templates. Those multiple templates can be used for fundraising, campaigning, multiple purposes. So it's nice and modular, Marketing Tools is. We also wanted to make our blocks branded so that it's recognizably coming from the Children's Society. And that's what we started to do. So here's our initial build. This is a mobile version of one of those blocks that you might recognize from the original designs. I think it looks nice. It's and what I'll point out with this particular image, the orange, I guess, sort of field. So the way I designed this is sort of the way that you would design things on a website. You'd have an image, so that paint sort of effect at the top and that paint effect at the bottom, those are both images, and they're just right next to an HTML block. They're the same, so the images have the same shade of orange as the HTML block has the same shade of orange as its background. So it looks like one thing, but it's really 3 things. And it looks great like that, I think. And then we quickly started to run into obstacles. This was a bit of a learning curve to me. Dark mode. I use dark mode. I know close to half of people in the world use dark mode on their mobile devices, on their laptops. And we want to be able to respect that. You know, people want to look at emails their own way, you know, how they want to. But we ran into an issue with the way this was composed. So remember, there were the 2 images at the top and bottom. Those did not change in dark mode, whereas that central block did. So it became a bit jarring. You add multiple sort of oddly colored collections of things. It quickly goes off brand as you look through your emails. or as you would receive emails from us. So there were additional constraints that we encountered. The lack of JavaScript was a big one. And really, just it was amazing to me that there's so many different email clients, and the way that they rendered emails was so different from device to device, from operating system to operating system. It's remarkable just how different they are. And I will say there's one point here. From a certain point of view, the layout options are approximately 20 years behind web design, which is, I think, kind of remarkable as well. So, who here is familiar with the band White Stripe? The White Stripes? In case you're not, they're a wonderful band from, also from about 20 years ago. And they made a song called Little Room. And the great thing about the White Stripes, it's just two people, they play guitar, drums, and they have vocals. So it's a very simple approach to music. Little Room is about someone being in a little room and having constrained tools, just a few tools, and they make something really great. They get famous, they go out, and they start thinking, this is nice, there's more resources, there's more tools available to me, but I kind of miss being in that little room. And to me, that's what email is. It's that character from the White Stripes song, gets its fame, it makes something really great, goes out into the world, people love it, for the most part. And unlike web development, which stays out in the world, becomes incredibly popular, uses JavaScript, uses CSS frameworks, can adapt very easily to dark and light mode. Email development went back into that little room, which is, I think, sort of a challenge, but it's also kind of a nice little, technically it's a nice set of constraints to be working with. So I kind of dug into this a little bit. I started putting together a cheat sheet. This is all available. If anyone would like it, please feel free to access it. It's essentially all the little quirks that I found with email development. And it includes things that we discussed previously with dark mode, not being able to control dark mode. You can control it on some devices. You can control it on Apple Mail. You can't always in Google Mail. You can control... It's amazing how many things can be controlled in one little way on some devices and some email clients, but not in others. So if you would like a lot of information, encyclopedic information, it started out as a cheat sheet, but it's really, I don't know what you describe it, a cheat diatribe now. But we did further testing. So, and one of the other things that we found was the ways that slices content rendered on different devices and different email clients varied significantly. So these were some of our initial builds. We used a tool called Email on Acid, which if you're not using it to develop emails, I would suggest looking at something like that. That's in that cheat sheet as well. But it's a useful tool. It renders emails and gives you a sense of how things are working, or in the case of these designs, how they're not working. But you can see that there's a lot of misalignments and the stacking of some of those slices that were, side by side on desktop is not completely working on mobile. So we did a lot of testing with Email on Acid. It was super useful. And what we came up with was something like this. So we've got an early collection, a functional collection of blocks. This is a screenshot of our blocks in Marketing Tools. And these are really the components that we distilled those original designs down to. So you've got, sort of a 50-50 block there in the upper left corner. You've got text. You've got a CTA button with a designed background. We have the footer. We have a full-size image. And then down at the bottom, we have two options for headers. One is a designed image on the right, and on the left, there's just that little narrow image with text. The nice thing about that text is it responds to dark mode or light mode, so it's a very flexible and accessible option. And this is what we came up with. These are, it's very much dummy text, but you've got, let's see, desktop on the left, mobile on the right. And you can see how the slices, when they're all put together in a template, I think they cohere, they work. They're on brand. And it gives, one of the things I love about Marketing Tools is it lets us set brand colors in our editorial interface. So our editors can choose from branded colors. We can keep our emails on brand very easily. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you. I'll hand it over to Callum. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, you've seen how we built the marketing tools. I'm going to talk through how what happened when we tried to roll them out to the organization and start using them at scale. So just a little bit of context. At the Children's Society, we have 3 what we call EN champions, and I'm one of those. So I support people in the organization to use EN in their campaigns through training, troubleshooting, and generally championing the platform in the organization. And I helped roll out the broadcast function last September. And so before this, we were using the traditional email function, which relied on pulling data from our CRM. So every time we wanted to send an email, we'd have to do a data brief and go through that whole process. So I just wanted to show you some examples of what our emails actually looked like. So this kind of demonstrates the variety of different designs that we were able to use after Matt built these components. So you can see from here, some of them are very image-led, some of them are a bit more text-heavy, but and then there's you can use different buttons, the 50/50 slice that Matt demonstrated. But there really is a variety of ways that we can now build our emails, which is a lot easier than before. So this is what happened when we introduced broadcasts to the organization. We found basically 3 key advantages after we started using them. First of all, they lowered the barrier to sending. So the drag and drop function meant that people actually building the emails didn't have to rely on HTML knowledge or speak to coding specialists when they're building their emails. So it meant that more teams could confidently build without support, basically. And secondly, it gave us more flexibility. Now, this isn't anything goes because our brand elements are obviously built into the functionality itself. So people could be creative, but within set parameters, basically. So the design components gave us consistency, but also granted us enough freedom to meet our campaign needs. And this basically allowed teams to move faster with fewer issues. And thirdly, because we introduced segments at the same time, and because these function so well with the broadcast function, we were allowed to this allowed us better use of data. So it allowed us to kind of target who we wanted, again, without the need to fill out data briefs. So these are some provisional stats where I've compared our traditional, when we were using the traditional email function to the broadcast function. And we've seen a clear improvement in clicks, click-through rate, and click-to-open rate. We've also seen a 5% increase in average gift in our email program and a 10% increase in donations. So that just shows that it's not just the functionality, it's not just the ease of use, but we've actually seen some demonstrable impact on our KPIs as well. So why this worked, there are sort of 4 elements to the rollout, basically. So once we were handed over the components to play with, we did some more testing in addition to the testing that Matt had already done. We tried sending these to different email clients just to check that the formatting was coming through correctly on things like iCloud, Gmail. Tried to go as diverse as possible because we knew our audience would be using different email clients. The second part was training. So in order to roll this out, we had to teach our organization how to use the functionality. So myself and 2 other EN champions ran some hands-on sessions with people, trying to use real examples and trying to build confidence in non-specialists and get them familiar with the functionality. And then after that, we created some training materials, which we've shared widely with the organization so people can return to them and use them when building emails now. Thirdly, the EN champions have been providing ongoing internal support. So if people have issues or problems with broadcasts or sending them all the templates, they can come to us and we can help them troubleshoot their issues. But I would say one of the key things that helped us launch this successfully is we had to build buy-in across the organization. So we really had to frame this in the right way as a new tool that could save time and save resources, and introduce it to key staff using the right methods. So this involves sharing feedback from the SLT, saying how much they liked our new templates, and sharing some early wins with teams to really encourage them to adopt the new functionality and start using it. So what did we learn? So for anyone who is launching broadcasts in their organization or a similar kind of functionality, these are the 4 takeaways that I found. Firstly, it took longer than expected. Testing, implementing, and building buy-in, don't underestimate these things, because behavior change within an organization takes time, and adoption across teams isn't always even spread. So it may take some people longer than others to adopt this new technology. Secondly, training isn't a one-off. People forget, new people start in your organization. There are always edge cases that cause confusion. So ongoing support is really needed to help people get used to new things like this. But as I said, we now have good shareable materials, which helped a lot, because people can go back to them and use them to help guide them. Thirdly, it's really key that you do expect problems after launch and you try and plan for them as much as possible. There are some issues that you only discover once broadcasts are live. Small bugs tend to emerge over time, and fixing these things is what maintains people's trust in the software. So you need to be on hand to be able to support them with that. You also may need to protect some dev time post-launch to iterate and fix bugs and support people. I'd say that one of the biggest things we learned, though, that this isn't a one-off launch. It's not a launch date and it doesn't end there. It's an ongoing process of embedding, supporting, and refining once real teams start using it at scale. So just to conclude, despite the challenges that I've just shared, introducing broadcast has been a significant step forward for our email program. They've helped us improve consistency, increase our engagement, and make better use of our data at scale. And personally, it's been really valuable to my work, and it's made my life a lot easier. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Callum, and thank you, Matt. We do have a few questions, and feel free to pop in more or vote for your favorites here. The first question is, how did you test out your templates and blocks? When I have tried putting the HTML into external sites for troubleshooting or testing, it doesn't work because those sites can't read the containers.
Let's see, how did we test the blocks? There was a lot of testing within EN, within marketing tools, and there was a lot of testing with test emails. So really, I mean, email on ACID was a big help, but also before we actually sent it there, I would send them to myself and one of my colleagues just to proofread and make sure, well, not proofread, but to make sure they were working. That's what we did.
And then while you're up here, for dark mode, how did you solve for that problem? I mean, it looks like you just decided not to use that template that the designers created for you.
Yeah. I mean, that was part of it. It was a nice template, I thought, and it certainly worked well in light mode. I guess, like, organizationally, there was communication to share with colleagues that we couldn't use these particular branded designs, and I had to share reasons for why we couldn't do that. So there was that part, and to address the technical issue. And the other issue, it's really sort of one of these things that we're continuing to fine tune. It gets into that idea of variance from email client to email client and platform to platform. there are certain hues. I mean, some email clients will leave the colors as they are, more or less. Some will sort of invert them so that they become more accessible as the text changes from a whitish to a blackish color. But yeah, what we did, we just worked with those hues, got rid of the images, had to communicate with people.
Somebody asked, was there a point where you were using 2 email platforms at the same time? And how did you manage unsubscribes?
Yeah, we were. So we were using there was a bit of overlap with the traditional email and the broadcasts. While we were kind of encouraging everybody to use the new broadcast function, some people were very used to the old one, obviously. They didn't quite know how to use the segmentation and stuff like that yet. So there was a bit of overlap. I don't think it caused that many issues just because we have a comms planner and nothing really goes out without kind of going through that first. There wasn't any clashes, but it did take time to kind of move people over to broadcasts. Obviously, it's traditional email is no longer available, so everybody's kind of using it now, but there was that period. With unsubscribes, not sure I understand exactly. So we, I guess, have a level of unsubscribes built into our kind of planning. We're always doing like lead generation campaigns and stuff like that. So we don't really see our email list declining as such, but yeah, I don't know if there's any clarification on that, but yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Did you upload your own data lists for broadcast or use an existing list?
We did, yeah. So that was another thing that you didn't hear about today, but went on in the background with our data team, put a lot of work into building the segmentations in EN, which we didn't have previously. But that was done with the view that it would ultimately save that team and others like a huge amount of time because they wouldn't be having to fulfill like data briefs every week, that sort of thing.
Well, and that saving time leads into the next question. So it seems like all of the work that Matt did really set your team up to be able to deploy emails faster. Mm-hmm. And so now that you have the ability to deploy them faster, what is your team doing with that time?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. It's hard to say because workload and capacity is not something that is generally tracked in that way. I think I can only speak for myself, really. I say I'd probably spend more time on things like refining email journeys, welcome journeys, and things like that, as well as I have more time to support people using EN itself. So those 2 things have definitely increased for me, but team-wide, I couldn't say, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Mm-hmm. I don't see any other questions. So should we roll into the next session, even though we're ahead of time? Okay. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Callum. Another round of applause.